You're listening to the Around the Huddle podcast, powered by PAC-Hub. Around the Huddle, college sports beyond the game.
Hello and welcome into episode number 9 of the Around the Huddle podcast, where we talk about college sports beyond the game. Happy to have all of you with us today. My name is John Gross. I'm a sports broadcaster who also loves economics, business, politics, the legal side of things. You put that all together and you get the current landscape of college athletics. Things are always changing. We've had on some awesome guests to break down the ever-changing landscape of college sports. We have another top-notch guest today, one of my favorite people in the entire sports industry. But before we get to our guest today, a reminder that our show is brought to you, as always, by PAC-Hub. Take a look, bottom of your screen, PAC-Hub.com. If you are a student athlete and you want to go from school A to a different school, right? You're not happy with your current situation. You enter the NCAA transfer portal. How do you get noticed? That is where PAC-Hub comes into play. When you enter the PAC-Hub portal, not only your name is in there, but your stats, your GPA, your transcripts, any sort of specification that a coach can then use to search for you, to find you, that missing piece for their championship puzzle. It's in PAC-Hub. So check it out. A multitude of sports are available. They also have some information on the NIL side of things. So visit www.pac-hub.com. Again, pac-hub.com. Big thanks to everybody at PAC-Hub for powering what we do here on the Around the Huddle podcast. Okay, our guest today is Mike Poorman. Mike is somebody who I've known since, I guess, 2015 when I started at Penn State. I'm lucky to call him a mentor and a true friend. Really, like I said before, one of my favorite people in the industry. He has covered Penn State football since 1979 for a variety of media outlets, since 2009 as a columnist for statecollege.com. He's also taught a variety of writing, media, and sports-related courses at Penn State for over 25 years, educating over 5,000 students, including recent Super Bowl champions Saquon Barkley and Jahan Dotson. He currently teaches Com 170, which is called An Introduction to the Sports Industry, which hence makes him a perfect guest to have on our show. That is a core course of the university's interdisciplinary sports study minor, which I will say I'm very jealous that was not a thing when I was a student at Penn State. He's a 1982 graduate of Penn State with a dual degree in journalism and political science, and upon completion of his final thesis, Mike will have a master's degree from Penn State in kinesiology with a concentration in the history and philosophy of sport. Beyond that, he is also the director of alumni relations for the Belisario College of Communications at Penn State. So he knows everybody and anybody who's been through those halls. And you could find him on X, a great follow, at PSU Poorman. So without further ado, let's welcome in today's guest to the Around the Huddle podcast, Mike Poorman. Mike, thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having me. I have to say, it's been a decade that we've known each other, and it has turned into a great friendship. But I'm a big fan of the whole Gross family. I just got to say that right out there.
Well, the Gross family, we are a big fan of you, Mike. So we appreciate it, and great to have you on. I will say this, one of my few regrets from my time at Penn State, I never took your class.
You were the one person who didn't. Was probably that's how you've gotten to where you're at today. You didn't like it.
Oh my gosh. No, your class is as popular as any class that I've ever heard of. Anybody who took that class loved it. And I think the only reason why I didn't take it is because I came in from high school with a lot of credits and wanted to graduate a semester early. So I regret it. I apologize, but I know that your class is super popular, and you were telling me before you have 180 students now in that class?
It's grown. I'll give a plug for the class. Among the best thing about the class is the guests. Last week I had Rich Russo, Penn State grad, a director for Fox, who did the game Super Bowl yesterday. I got Matt Millen coming up. I have Allen Robinson coming up. And Jim Ivler, who's the agent for Tyler Warren, Tom Lee, Jordan Stout. So, those are a lot of football-centric people. But, the main industry in sports at Penn State is football. And that's a big reason people come. So for me, it's a great thing about class is getting folks like that to come to class.
It is an awesome class, and I'd recommend any Penn State student out there take it. Don't make the same mistake that I did. Although I did have the opportunity to sit in on a couple of your classes after graduating as well. Really enjoyed my time there. I think you come at this from such a unique perspective, Mike. We listed everything that you've done in your fantastic career so far. Everything from covering Penn State athletics to serving as a professor, getting to know student athletes. You work for the university. So you really have a well-rounded perspective on all of this. And I guess we'll start here. Over the last 3 to 5 years in college athletics, have we ever seen such a rapid period of change in college sports before?
No, that's a great question, but the answer is no. And it's the biggest change obviously is in football and basketball, but it's trickled down to where the so-called minor or Olympic sports, the head coaches are now team owners, general managers, fundraisers, ticket salespeople. They're wearing so many more hats. They're really running each team like a mini franchise with lots of pressure to bring in the money and to win and still graduate, especially at a school like Penn State. At least 29 of the 31 sports still follow that model.
Well, that's one of the things that I wanted to ask you about. I mean, you're seeing these student athletes on a daily basis. Have you noticed a change in the student athlete from, let's say, 15, 20 years ago to now, when there's so much talk about NIL and it's, at least from the outside, people say, oh, it's no longer about the team. It's about making the most money for the individual.
For the vast majority of sports and the vast majority of students, Penn State, a Power 4, top 10, top 15 Learfield Cup standings. No, I've had students from every team, from every sport, and I've been really lucky to have that perspective to see them in the classroom where they're unfettered. They get to decide where they attend, where they sit, how they respond, whether they study or not. And that's been very interesting to me, how it's changed, but also how it hasn't changed. And for 6 years, from 16 to 22, I was the faculty advisor for field hockey, which they've made the Final Four. They've won the Big Ten. And so, but it's a non-revenue sport and it's a female sport. So it was always good for me to have that experience. I mean, I traveled with them. I mentored them. Compare that to their counterparts, especially in football and basketball on the men's side. So I've had a good front row seat of that and seen, what the changes are and also what the changes aren't. And there's basically one major change, I'll be honest with you.
What is that change?
At least at Penn State, the football and men's basketball teams, many of them are dollar focused. Many of them think they're going to the pros. Many, not all. Like I had Nick Dawkins a couple years ago, sat in the front row, attended every class, and he, like a center would, and it was Carnegie Cinema, 120-seat theater, and he ran the class from the middle of front row. I mean, literally. So there are fabulous people like that. But there's not as many. Many more don't attend class, are focused on what's next rather than the academic side of things. And I'm sad to say that, but that's the biggest change. One of my sayings is, I won't even tell you what sport, but this one student, I only saw him on TV, not in class.
Oh my gosh, that says it all.
That's one of my favorite sayings. It's generic enough, but it's true.
Wow. Well, you mentioned Nick Dawkins. He won the Werfel Award, right?
He's home run. Since we're talking Saquon, I had him as a sophomore. He sat in the second row, never missed a class, participated. I I mean, and that wasn't that long ago. It's not that there aren't football and basketball players like that, but in all candor, I would say that's the biggest change I've seen as someone who's taught for a quarter of a century, and literally dozens, scores, hundreds of athletes at Penn State.
So these student athletes in your class and that you interact with in general obviously are learning a lot from you. I'd imagine that over the years, you've learned a lot from them as well. What are some of the biggest things that you've learned from your student athletes who you've worked with, especially in the modern era of college athletics?
And look, John, you were involved in a million things on campus and really terrific at them and traveled a lot. But the challenges on today's college athlete, no matter what team you're on, are immense. The pressure is immense. I've learned how they manage how they manage their time, how they manage the competing interest, how they manage what they do. I did a workshop for the women's lacrosse team, coached by Missy Darty. She's fabulous. They've made the Final Four. On branding. And a lot of this is, and this was in November, a lot of this is still new to them. They're trying to figure it out, and they're feeling pressure to take advantage of this, but also to do well in classroom, to have some sort of social life, and then also to do well on the playing field. So I think all of those pressures, and then even if it's not the pressure of doing a lot for NIL, it's the knowledge that it's out there and how much should I do? What can I do? Along with everything else. And then they're hearing other athletes on campus are making six figures at least. So it's an interesting time. And you often hear about mental health for athletes. And I think even if they're not partaking of NIL opportunities, or to a small degree, I think it really creates another layer of pressure, but the pressure on them and then the coaches to recruit and provide opportunities.
Right.
It's a tense atmosphere.
Yeah, and that added money, like you said, adds so much pressure. And I think with NIL, the discussion is so frequently about football and basketball, the two main revenue producers, and within that, the star players of those teams. But I know that so many athletes, besides those individuals, can make money off of NIL. So I'm curious if there are certain traits, certain characteristics, certain things that you've noticed that athletes who maybe aren't those superstar athletes have done to maximize their NIL potential at Penn State?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm going to name, and I think it's okay to name two. They're a former women's basketball player at Penn State and then a current women's volleyball player. They're both Anna Camden and Caroline Jaravicius. They're names, right? Names that you probably know. Fabulous student, have terrific outgoing personalities, are very media focused. That's what they want to do. They're charismatic, they're well spoken, they want to be involved in the media, so they see that as an entry into that. And I think those type of students that want to do that, they do have a leg up, because not only providing media opportunities, but then social media opportunities, and then speaking engagements. And I just connected Caroline to someone at WPSU who's looking for a student athlete, and Caroline totally fit the bill. And I had Caroline in class. She's an home run. She's an A+ student, and since she's a great student, I can say that I'm not violating any laws.
I just saw her on Landon Tengwell's show. That seems to be a big trend in the industry, that these athletes are going out and producing their own content.
Yes. Yeah, it is. And it cuts down the barriers. As you look at Penn State, Michael Giroux, he's a terrific gymnast. He's gotten better every year, and he has multiple millions on TikTok. He's very telegenic, and social media really, cuts to the quick, cuts out the middleman. But also, you'll notice that 2/3 of his posts, he's not wearing a shirt. Now he is a gymnast, but there is a certain niche there.
Interesting. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm one of the PAC-Hub's AI specialists. Today, I want to show you why PAC-Hub is the ultimate platform for college baseball players looking to transfer to a new college program. First, let's take a look at our extensive network of coaches. With over 150 coaches actively using our system, you have a huge pool of experts to connect with. Imagine having access to all these experienced coaches searching for talent like yours. You even have the ability to connect with any of these coaches via our internal messaging system. This means more opportunities to showcase your skills and find the perfect new team. Now let's switch gears and see things from a coach's perspective. Coaches can easily search for athletes by position or stat. Let's say I'm looking for a left-handed pitcher with good pitching stats. With just a few clicks, I can find top-performing pitchers who meet my criteria. This efficient search functionality ensures that coaches find the perfect fit for their teams and athletes get matched with opportunities that suit their strengths. PAC-Hub is all about connecting talent with opportunity. Whether you're an athlete looking to transfer to a new college team or a coach searching for the next star player, PAC-Hub has the tools you need to succeed. Don't miss out on the chance to be part of this amazing community. Join PAC-Hub today and take the next step in your baseball journey. Visit www.pac-hub.com to sign up now.
One other question I have about your class. How often do you have to change the syllabus now that things are always changing in college athletics?
Well, I can't pull off a lecture off the shelf in most cases because it literally changes overnight. So it keeps me on my toe. It's funny. Just before we got on air, I was, we're 5 weeks into the semester, and I updated a lot of things and turned two lectures into one. And yeah, it changes so much. Just house before we knew house, and then where house is at, and house hasn't been approved. And for a year, the National Labor Relations Board had issued a memo that said, bring it on. We're going to recognize any student athlete group that wants to collectively bargain. Well, she just got fired. So it's a whole new world out there. So that's a great question. Very astute. And it really changes at the speed of light. It's not like you're doing stat 200 and statistics, are the same. So that has changed, and it keeps me on my toes. The other thing, though, is the people are living this, so that they get it. And so the news yesterday might be today's lesson. It is that timely.
You brought up house. Let's dive into that. If for those watching who maybe want to learn a little bit more about some of the intricacies of house, I'd recommend going back and watching our 2 episodes with sports attorney Sam Finkel, where we dove very in-depth into house. And things are always changing with house itself. But let's say that this does go on track and is implemented in, I believe, April or so later this year. Do you think that this settlement is the most consequential event in the history of college athletics?
Yes, but until the next one, I do think it's just a bridge until some sort of collective bargaining. That has to happen, at least at the basketball and football stage. Literally tomorrow, we're going to talk about the amount of athlete compensation that is overall a percentage of league revenues. And so you're looking at most major leagues, it's around 50%. It may be 48%. NBA is actually the lowest. In baseball, it's like 58%. But even with the house money, with the best I can get, when you look at Penn State football revenues last year of $113 million, and I'm guessing between scholarships of $6 million and house payments to Penn State football of up to $18 million, that it's only going to be 22% of revenues shared. That's for athletes at the professional level, it's not 22%. And I think it's going to continue to go up. And the only way that goes up is to carve out something, and whether it's collective bargaining without calling them employees. I think house is a good step. This is a long answer, but eventually there's going to be some sort of CBA. There has to be at the basketball and especially at the football Power 4, what's known as the Division I or the FBS level, because the revenues are so great.
Are we on track for a split between the Power 4s and everybody else?
There has to be. There has to be. And it's if you go back to the late 70s and early 80s, the College Football Association That's when most of the Power Five, Notre Dame, Penn State, the military academies, they formed a I was going to say collective, but that's not the kind of collective that we know these days. A coalition of 64 to 68 teams and negotiated together. That's kind of the number we're going to end up with, and it makes sense. And so whether they're foundations or they're semi-pro or they're broken off from the Intercollegiate Athletic Association departments, that's a long again. That yes, it makes sense, and it's the only way they're going to continue to make the dollars. It's the only way that Penn State fencing can continue. Penn State tennis can continue, and you're looking at now with the house money, you're looking at a payroll just from the university. I'm not talking about true NIL collective money. You're looking at a payroll when you count tuition, and I think you need to count tuition. So tuition in dollars and cents of $20 to $25 million. That's a payroll. That's a payroll. If there's a payroll, then you're looking at labor relations, then you're looking at collective bargaining. And then honestly, there's a reason that every major sports league in America has a union. I think you'll see some sort of union as well.
So Kane Coulter and his former Northwestern teammates, they'll be vindicated.
Wow. That's your stuff. I remember when that happened, teaching that lesson. And even back then, the NLRB didn't say you couldn't do it. They just said you can't do it now, and you can't probably do it at Northwestern because they're private and a conference of public schools. He was literally 10, 12 years ahead of his time. I do think I think that's the next step because the revenues are so big.
So looking at House, and as you touched on, that revenue sharing from the university, that piece of the pie is $20.5 million. Teams can opt into that. They don't have to, but they can. We've seen schools take different measures, whether it's increasing fees, whether it's cutting sports, cutting positions. That money has to come from somewhere. I know at Penn State, we saw the announcement last week of the Legacy Fund, which is nominal ticket price increases, increases in parking, concessions, et cetera, to fund the increase in scholarships. What's your take on that? Do you expect to see all of these schools have to take similar measures?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Ohio State, if you look at their ledger of what they submitted to the NCAA, right? They lost $37 million last year. That business is not sustainable. Here's the other thing, and we talked about this in class last week, and it came out, the Petiti did say those two magic words, private equity. Private. So I think you're looking at some sort of labor agreement, and you are looking at private equity. I mean, it's just, there's 19 teams. Well, actually 21 when you count the two new ones in the NFL. The Bills and the Dolphins took on private equity. The NFL just accepted that. There's 19 other teams in Major League Baseball, the NBA, and NHL that take on private equity. The Big Ten is talking about taking on private equity. Look, if you're taking on private equity and you're taking investors who aren't doing it because they're fans, they see sports as an opportunity to get really nice margins, then the athletes are going to have to get some of that too.
When I think private equity, like you said, it's all about investing and a return on that investment. So I get worried about those the quote unquote smaller sports, which are not really the smaller sports, but the Olympic sports that aren't bringing in revenues. Those sports all lose money for the universities. So what does it look like? I know it's tough to say now, but is there a real sense of concern for those sports and their future?
I think, not to speak for an individual coach at Penn State, a head coach, but back to what I said near the beginning, yeah, they're concerned. They have to manage all these new dollars and raise a lot of these new dollars and keep athletes and recruit athletes and maybe provide additional revenue opportunities. It's not why they got into the sport with the X's and the O's. And you will see, and it's happened at other places. I think it was Indiana where they slashed their athletic department by 30 or 40 people. So I think the buildup you've seen in athletics, certainly not football because it brings in the money. And at Penn State, James Franklin, he's hiring analysts as if they're on sale at Kohl's. But you're going to see reduced staffs, I think, some reduced support for those minor sports, and also a lot more pressure on the head coaches.
I've also seen, I know Tennessee did this, this talent fee, a 10% talent fee, where that money is directly going towards the student athletes. Do you expect to see something like that become more common as well?
There has to be, no matter whatever they label it. And I think that's bad marketing. I went to return to rec 2 weeks ago. I only go to one basketball game a year, and my friend has season tickets. They're great ones. We sat midcourt and Rec Hall, Penn State against Ohio State, and they got thrashed. And they weren't even. I mean, it was just a lack of effort. They've had a lot of injuries, and you certainly know the sport better than I do, so I understand that. But in the second half, the people behind me, their hair was grayer than mine, and they bought the seats. They have more money than I do, and they were complaining. This is what we get for our NIL. I mean, that was literally what they said.
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm one of the PAC-Hub's AI specialists. Today, I want to show you why PAC-Hub is the ultimate platform for college baseball players looking to transfer to a new college program. First, let's take a look at our extensive network of coaches. With over 150 coaches actively using our system, you have a huge pool of experts to connect with. Imagine having access to all these experienced coaches searching for talent like yours. You even have the ability to connect with any of these coaches via our internal messaging system. This means more opportunities to showcase your skills and find the perfect new team. Now let's switch gears and see things from a coach's perspective. Coaches can easily search for athletes by position or stat. Let's say I'm looking for a left-handed pitcher with good pitching stats. With just a few clicks, I can find top-performing pitchers who meet my criteria. This efficient search functionality ensures that coaches find the perfect fit for their teams and athletes get matched with opportunities that suit their strengths. PAC-Hub is all about connecting talent with opportunity. Whether you're an athlete looking to transfer to a new college team or a coach searching for the next star player, PAC-Hub has the tools you need to succeed. Don't miss out on the chance to be part of this amazing community. Join PAC-Hub today and take the next step in your baseball journey. Visit www.pac-hub.com to sign up now.
As we wind down, one last question for you. I'm going to give you all the power in the world. You can do whatever you want. How are you, Mike Poorman, fixing college athletics?
I think it's a simple fix. Less than 5% of all the there's over 500,000 athletes, students who go to school at NCAA member institutions, Division I, II, and III. Less than 5% are football players and basketball players. Just spin those off. Now, the logistics of dollars and cents and whether they go to class and those things, whether it's a foundation or a corporation or a separate league, and then everything else goes on. Because I have to tell you, I'm here to tell you that the other 29 sports, and when I say 29 sports, I'm actually including women's basketball. Penn State has some, and you know, the student women basketball players I've had in class, really good students. And I think you fix it that way, and then the rest is really about the dollars and cents. And people go, will people cheer for them? Well, look, the Eagles are getting paid, and people are cheering for them. John, there's almost 900,000 alumni for Penn State. To a degree, they don't care how much Singleton makes, maybe $750,000, as long as they win and he's a good kid, and he's a good kid. So to me, it's almost an easy fix.
Okay, well, if one day you become commissioner of college athletics, then you'll implement it. You have my vote, 100%.
Okay. A couple million ago.
Well, Mike, I really appreciate your time today. Always a pleasure speaking with you, and thanks for the insight. Enjoy the rest of the semester.
Hey, thanks for having me, John. Take care. Best to Matt and the family.
Absolutely. There you have it, everybody. Mike Poorman joining us. Truly learned a lot. I always learn a lot when I speak with Mike. Truly one of my favorites in the industry. Big thanks to all of you for joining us. One final reminder, check out PAC-Hub, bottom of your screen, pac-hub.com. We truly appreciate PAC-Hub for their support. Once again, thanks for joining us. We will talk to you soon.